Welcome back, everybody, to the second half of the Experience Closing Conference. Good to have you all with us. Just for you, some of you that have just joined us for the afternoon session, welcome to you all. I'm Chris Brandt from Unmissable England, and I'm your host for the conference this afternoon. If you've got a question you would like to ask any of our panelists, you can pop that question into our Q&A feature, which you can find that icon on your toolbar. Just click on that and then you can pop the question to any of our panelists. Just to refer back to which presentation you're asking your question about. Today's event is bilingual, and if you look at your screen in the toolbar, you will find the interpretation button. It's a small globe button. Please click on that and you'll have the option to either select French or English channels to join in the presentation there. So let's get on with the afternoon session then. This is how the rest of the day is shaping up. So our next session is looking at building how businesses have built resilience during the pandemic. Then we've got a slight pause to grab another coffee, and then we'll finish up with how residents really do matter and the role of tourism in making the destination appealing to both visitors and the local community. And that's our final session today. Let's turn our attention then on to our next theme. So we start this afternoon with building how businesses have built resilience in a time of crisis. Well, we've all, pretty much got used to a crisis of some sort over the past few years, and it's been really, really tough for so many businesses, both sides of the channel. But Experience has been there to support those businesses through those rough times, providing business support, advice, and guidance, and creating new peer-to-peer networks where businesses can share and collaborate to work together. Well, I've been lucky enough to be a part of the Experience project here in England, working with many different tourist boards and county councils, etc., delivering their tourism training, working in workshops in experiential tourism, marketing, storytelling, reaching new markets and distribution of new products across the marketplace. In a moment, we're here from Rebecca Rees from Kent County Council and the Kent Downs Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty and their project to create new bookable experiences. And we'll join Elizabeth in Pas-de-Calais to hear about the business support programme and training for tourism businesses there. And we'll join George in Norfolk County Council and how they've been developing experiences and providing training to traditional and non-tourism training to businesses in those two categories. And we joined Philip from Cycling UK to share the findings of their project on attracting cyclists and more people to become cycle friendly. So that's what's coming up, but let me hand over to Rebecca from the Kent Downs Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty and Kent County Council. Afternoon, Rebecca.
Hi, Chris. Good to be here. So yes, I'm Rebecca. I work for the Kent Downs Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, and also we work with the North Downs Way National Trail. For those who don't know, the Kent Downs, that means it's a protected landscape, and that means that the special landscape characteristics are worthy of national designation and protection. And we work to enhance and promote enjoyment of that very special landscape. So I'm going to talk you through our Experience Maker programme, which is one of a number of business support packages that we put together as part of the Experience programme. The purpose of running the programme was to help those businesses who operate in the Kent Downs and along the North Downs Way to develop new bookable experiences that particularly demonstrated the value of being in a protected landscape, and which of course helped them to diversify their business offer, or even in some cases to start a new business offer. We promoted it through our existing business list, mailing list of about 600 businesses, but we also in particular researched those businesses who fitted with our values. So those businesses and people who wanted to celebrate what is special about the landscape, and also who wanted to connect visitors with its nature, its culture, and its way of life. And this principle of shared values was a golden thread that ran through the whole programme, from initial applications through our workshops and all the way to our successful marketing campaign that we've just been working on. So we ran 2 rounds of this programme in early 2021 and 2022. Next slide, please, Chris. Thank you. We ran taste webinars, including one specifically for farmers, because we work with farmers a lot, or agritourism, as we know it, and also for our North Downs Way ambassadors to encourage more walking experiences. We asked businesses to apply to us, and as part of that application, we had a landscape promise, and this asked businesses to demonstrate how they would share the special qualities of the Kent Downs with their visitors. We asked them to commit to being environmentally sustainable, but also how they would promote other local produce and places to stay, so that the wider business community benefits from their visitors. We also work closely with our partner Visit Kent alongside their own business support programme, so that we could signpost each other to the more relevant programme for each business. And for the second round, we were able to use some video testimonials from the first round who we had worked with in round 1, and that really helped show businesses other people that we had helped. In total, we worked with 37 businesses, although not all of those went on to develop experiences, and I'll come on to why a bit later. We also worked with a number of countryside and country park managers, and that was very interesting because they are more used to running public facilities and running events for the general public, and this was quite a new way for them to think about how they may develop and generate income through visitors. So the programme itself, we ran a workshop with Chris through Unmissable England, and that really went through in detail what makes a great experience: the people, the place, and the participation. I've remembered it all, within a follow-up experience maker toolkit, so that they could go away and reference that. Initially, these were online because of COVID, but in round 2, we were able to do some of those in person, and actually that proved much more popular than an online alternative that we offered. And you can see them all getting together there, much better for interaction. And as part of that workshop, we built in briefing the businesses about the Kent Downs and the North Downs Way. Then we asked them to do a little bit of homework, putting an experience together, and we had a follow-up call with Chris so that they could talk through any of those particular issues. And these ranged from what food license do I need, what market should I go to, so some really specific things that they needed to overcome. But also it was intended to give them confidence to promote themselves, their passion, their expertise as part of that experience. We provided a copywriting and photography service, and we also provided some onboarding webinars from Unmissable England, from Airbnb, and also signposted them to other providers such as Beyond, to really help them take that experience to market. We offered, to overcome financial barriers, we also offered a 2/3 grant for equipment that was absolutely essential to run their experience, particularly out of season. So we've helped businesses to buy telescopes, art equipment, cooking equipment, and bell tents to make, for example, forest experiences all weather. And that's really helped some of the small businesses that we work with take their experience forward. The informal get-togethers were a really good part of this. So a Christmas lunch, we held a test and learn session where one of our experience makers ran her offer for the other experience makers, and they were able to share learning from those. And we've recently also done some follow-up webinars with social media, travel trade, and another OTA onboarding information. So we feel that we've offered really good package for businesses with everything they need to set up a new bookable experience. But it was really a team effort, with everyone from the team talking to businesses, encouraging them, and especially with the help of our marketing colleagues. The types of businesses, so next slide please, Chris. So the types of businesses that we've worked with have been really very small SMEs, and particularly non-traditional businesses. And that's part of the reason why we invested so much in the support programme, because they didn't have much experience in tourism in particular. So you can see here we've got a ranger-led experience with someone from a country park who's a bird expert, but not necessarily used to taking that further, taking that to market, making it bookable. We have Ed, who is our rebel farmer, who is a organic micro farm producer, and he brings visitors to help them think about how they could do their own micro farm and then put it together and cook it up, and they end up with a lunch. Anita there from Out to the Woods. Not only is she a forest school leader, she's also a teacher, and she also runs a community woodland. So that's a really lovely example of her using ancient family recipes to cook chapatis in a woodland whilst telling visitors about what is special about that woodland. And then finally, some family survival adventures there with our Natural Pathways partner. But we also have stargazing, we have forest bathing, and we have quite a lot of mindfulness-based experiences. So really promoting the fact that nature is so good for your mental well-being. So we were really pleased to have some of those. So next slide, please. As I said, a lot of our businesses were very small, sometimes just one person, or a business that, you know, is a farm and therefore not necessarily used to doing this. But one of the legacies that we have is that we built up these relationships with businesses from really a standing start. We've had to reinvigorate our relationships and our communications with businesses. And we found that so many of them share our passion for the countryside. And we've been amazed at the talents and the ingenuity that they brought to it. And some of them have also partnered with each other. So you have Scott from Wild Classroom partnering with the rebel farmer Ed. You've got Boots on Adventures who do walking experiences working with a forager. We've got some really lovely examples, but still very much connected to our principles of protected landscapes. But we have learned a lot. There are many challenges, as we will all know, that businesses have faced. COVID, followed by the cost of living crisis, a lot of our businesses were in survival mode, keeping their businesses afloat. And then when things started getting back to normal, they were really very busy with their core business. And so taking that time out to develop a new product with possibly not so much certainty as their core product was quite a challenge. And the idea of it being flexible and bookable was for some of them a new idea and was quite challenging to take through. Although some of them absolutely got it in the first instance, set it up immediately. So what we've done, we've worked with businesses to see how they could offer their experience in a different way. So as part of our Pilgrims Festival, many of the events as part of that big, highly marketed festival were run by experience makers and ambassadors, or they've put on events that they can easily manage and that they can test and learn how that experience will work to gain their confidence to then make it more bookable and more available for more visitors at a time that is good for the visitors coming. And finally, we've also been able, if a business hasn't necessarily developed a new experience, we've been able to work with them to encompass their place. So we have a farm, for example, an organic farm, but we've been able to include that as part of an overall itinerary. and our itineraries include many of the businesses that we've worked with through the process. So it's also given us a long-term internal legacy. So we have long-term support through the resources that we have been able to provide online for future businesses to be able to take advantage of the work we've done. And we've also got that skills and that knowledge embedded in the team now as well. So we can also offer advice to business who come to us. So in summary, therefore, our Experience Maker programme, it has produced a number of new reasons to visit the Kent Downs, which visitors would not have been aware of. It's promoted a number of sustainable businesses to new audiences, and likewise provided those businesses with new skills in tourism. But it's also very much brought the Kent Downs and its business community together through shared values to be able to promote more reasons to visit the Kent Downs and its value as a protected landscape. Thanks, Chris. I think there's just a couple more slides now to show you the diversity of the experiences that have come out of the programme.
Thank you very much indeed, Rebecca, and it's been a real pleasure to work with you in the team and with so many small businesses right across the Kent Downs area of outstanding natural beauty. And it's great to see these pictures because, you know, we've sat in many of these kind of Zoom calls talking about these ideas, and it's great to see those images all across the AOMB actually now come to fruition. So thank you very much. If you've got a question for Rebecca, pop that into the Q&A icon on your screen and we'll answer those at the end of the session, or Rebecca can get back to you straight away on the text there. So love to hear from anyone that's got a question. Right, let's go from Calais. Sorry, let's go from Kent to Pas-de-Calais to join Elizabeth Rutter now, who's joining us to talk about the project on the other side of the channel.
Merci beaucoup, Chris. Bonjour. Oui, moi je vais vous expliquer comment Pas-de-Calais Tourisme, dans le contexte du projet Expérience et du Covid, a réagi pour mobiliser les professionnels du tourisme dans les formations que nous souhaitions mettre en place en vue de les aider à développer des offres de tourisme expérientiel. C'était pour nous une étape très importante du projet. Comme vous le savez, on devait, pour développer nos offres de tourisme expérientiel, former les entreprises touristiques à ce qu'est une offre de tourisme expérientiel et à comment elles pouvaient créer ces offres. Heureusement, avant le confinement, nous avions lancé un questionnaire à l'échelle du partenariat du projet Expérience auprès de l'ensemble des entreprises touristiques de notre zone pour connaître leurs attentes en termes de formation, leurs attentes, leurs besoins pour se perfectionner sur le développement d'offres de tourisme expérientiel. Le 17 mars 2020, c'était le jour du confinement en France. Ça a été un choc, un très grand choc. Plus de 90% de l'activité touristique s'est arrêtée du jour au lendemain. Après une période de grande sidération, il a fallu réagir. Alors au début, les entreprises touristiques étaient plutôt dans un état où elles ne répondaient plus à nos appels. On avait du mal à les joindre. Et puis, au bout de quelques semaines, l'État a commencé à mettre en place des dispositifs d'aide pour accompagner les périodes de fermeture des entreprises touristiques. À partir de ce moment-là, on a commencé de nouveau à avoir un certain nombre de contacts avec ces entreprises pour qu'elles puissent obtenir les aides. Ensuite, une fois cette période passée, le déconfinement de l'été est arrivé et nous avons dû accompagner les entreprises touristiques dans la mise en place des protocoles sanitaires. Deuxième slide, s'il vous plaît. Donc, pendant l'été 2020, les entreprises n'étaient pas du tout intéressées par les actions qu'on pouvait leur proposer dans le cadre du projet expérience. Elles étaient vraiment très préoccupées par leur activité, par le redémarrage de leur activité, par le respect des normes de sécurité sanitaire, avec l'ensemble des protocoles à mettre en place qui étaient un peu compliqués pour tout vous dire. Donc, suite à l'été 2020, on s'est vraiment interrogé sur la façon dont on pouvait mobiliser les entreprises et on savait déjà à la fin de l'été 2020 que d'autres périodes de confinement allaient arriver. Ce que nous a appris aussi cette période de confinement, c'est que les attentes des visiteurs avaient beaucoup évolué. Et avec ces périodes, les visiteurs ont vraiment accéléré la digitalisation de l'activité touristique. Tout ce qu'on pouvait faire à l'époque en distanciel était bienvenu parce qu'on avait des règles de sécurité sanitaire qui étaient en place. Les visiteurs se sont également tournés vers un tourisme de proximité en recherche de produits locaux, durables, responsables. Et puis, bien entendu, il y avait ce besoin de sécurité qui était vraiment très présent à l'époque. Nous avons donc testé plusieurs méthodes, plusieurs actions pour mobiliser les prestataires dans les formations que qu'on leur proposait. D'abord, on a travaillé les formats. Next slide, s'il vous plaît. On a travaillé les formats et la durée des formations. En France, on avait très peu l'habitude de mettre en place des formations pour les entreprises touristiques en visioconférence. Ça ne se passait quasiment jamais. La plupart du temps, les formations se faisaient dans un bureau, tous ensemble, en présentiel. Ce qui facilite les échanges, c'est ce que les professionnels attendent de ces moments de formation. C'est la rencontre et l'échange. Donc là, il a fallu leur proposer des formats en visioconférence. C'était une nouveauté pour eux. Les formats en visioconférence ont forcément été adaptés en termes de contenu, bien entendu, pour les rendre plus interactifs, mais aussi en termes de durée. Nous sommes passés d'une journée de formation sur un sujet à 1 heure, 2 heures maximum pour garder l'attention des entreprises. Ensuite, nous avons développé un site internet dédié au plan de formation des entreprises touristiques dans le Pas-de-Calais, dans lequel on retrouvait l'ensemble des formations du projet expérience. Ce site devait faciliter la communication des formations, mais aussi faciliter l'inscription des professionnels du tourisme à ces formations. Nous avons également produit des vidéos qui présentaient succinctement le contenu des formations pour aider les entreprises à comprendre, à mieux comprendre ce que pouvaient leur apporter ces formations. D'ailleurs, nous avons un exemple de vidéo que nous allons pouvoir projeter. S'il te plaît, Chris.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous, je suis Guy Castagnier, formateur et consultant dans le tourisme. Je vais vous présenter les avantages de la formation professionnelle sur le tourisme expérientiel qui vous est proposé par Pas-de-Calais Tourisme. Vous souhaitez vous former sur les dernières tendances, les sujets d'actualité, les moyens nécessaires au développement de votre activité? Vous cherchez à développer votre activité en dehors de la haute saison? Vous voulez proposer des services et des offres qui feront vraiment la différence auprès de vos clients? Le module « Étendre à la saison touristique par le développement d'offres de tourisme expérientiel » de Pas-de-Calais Tourisme répond parfaitement à 2 enjeux essentiels pour vous qui êtes prestataire de tourisme. Tout d'abord, pouvoir concevoir une offre de service qui vous démarque sur le marché en proposant une expérience client à forte valeur ajoutée, ce que recherche aujourd'hui une grande partie des personnes. Également attirer en dehors de la haute saison pour mieux répondre aux besoins d'une clientèle qui souhaite éviter le tourisme de masse après la pandémie de Covid. Mais aussi pour vous afin de développer votre activité de façon plus lissée durant l'année. Cette formation pratique, opérationnelle, est organisée au siège de Pas-de-Calais Tourisme. Elle est également gratuite, concise, une journée en présentiel, participative, incluant un atelier. Elle a pour but de vous sensibiliser au thème et à ses multiples intérêts sur le niveau 1, puis quelques semaines plus tard, à vous accompagner dans la conception d'offres expérientielles adaptées à vos clients pour le niveau 2. Autre intérêt, je vous accompagne par un suivi de mise en œuvre suite aux journées pour faciliter le lancement de votre nouvelle expérience en hors-saison. Les modalités sont très simples. Il vous suffit de vous inscrire dès maintenant aux dates qui sont proposées en semaine et bien entendu, puisque nous parlons de hors-saison, en hors-saison. Je vous dis à très bientôt.
Donc, l'idée de ces vidéos, comme vous avez pu le voir, c'est que le formateur lui-même présente les avantages de ces formations aux entreprises pour vraiment leur donner envie de participer. Nous avons également beaucoup communiqué via des newsletters. Pas-de-Calais Tourisme a une newsletter mensuelle qui a été le relais de l'ensemble des dates de formation que nous proposions. Nous avons également envoyé des emails personnalisés pour les collaborateurs de Pas-de-Calais Tourisme qui ont l'habitude de travailler avec des prestataires touristiques et qui ont des fichiers. Nous leur avons demandé d'envoyer des emails à leurs fichiers contacts pour leur présenter les formations qui seront à venir. Et enfin, nous avons également appelé un certain nombre d'entreprises touristiques que nous connaissions bien pour vraiment les motiver à participer à ces formations. De façon générale, les entreprises qui ont participé aux formations étaient ravies. Les retours sont excellents. On a mis quelques verbatims à la fin de la vidéo que vous venez de visionner. Ils sont toujours très élogieux. Mais force est de constater qu'on a toujours aussi énormément de difficultés à les mobiliser. Et malgré tous les outils que nous mettons en place, cette mobilisation reste un vrai défi. Ce que nous apprend le projet Expérience, c'est que mieux on connaît les entreprises touristiques, mieux on a l'habitude de travailler avec eux au quotidien, plus il est facile de les recruter dans ce genre d'accompagnement. C'est pourquoi, grâce au projet Expérience, nous avons aussi développé notre stratégie Grandir ensemble. Cette stratégie, slide suivante s'il vous plaît. Cette stratégie est une stratégie de réseau qui nous a permis de travailler sur le développement des offres expérientielles. Cette stratégie de réseau vise à faire se rencontrer des prestataires touristiques, des entreprises touristiques qui ont les mêmes valeurs que Pas-de-Calais Tourisme, donc des valeurs tournées sur le durable, sur un tourisme de qualité, sur un tourisme d'échange, sur un tourisme authentique. Et donc, ces prestataires qui décident d'entrer dans le réseau Grandir ensemble, nous les rencontrons, nous échangeons avec eux, nous discutons de leurs besoins, de leurs envies, de leurs projets, nous essayons de comprendre quelles sont leurs difficultés et nous discutons avec eux pour trouver des solutions. Les formations mises en place dans le projet Expérience contribuent à enrichir ces entreprises, à les aider à grandir pour arriver dans le réseau Grandir Ensemble de Pas-de-Calais Tourisme. Donc voilà comment le projet Expérience nous a amené à développer nos réseaux de prestataires. Sur la slide suivante, on a donc ici, vous avez la sélection Grande Côte d'Opale pour la partie littorale du Pas-de-Calais et vous verrez sur la slide suivante donc la sélection Campagnes et Marais pour la partie plus rurale du Pas-de-Calais. Merci.
Merci, Elizabeth. Thank you very much indeed. And so interesting to hear a lot of similarities, as Rebecca was saying in her presentation, what was happening in Kent. So interesting to hear that as well. So merci for that. So let's join George, who is in Norfolk, George Pott. Hello, George.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. The next slide, please. So today I will present how we have developed a tourist network and how this has helped the project and obviously the local businesses. Next slide. So you will see that we took a three-stage approach. The first stage being database development, followed by network building and growth, and then the management of the database and the network was the third stage. Okay. Like many projects, Experience has started with almost no visibility in the local tourist market. So in order to create a network, we needed to communicate what the project stands for and how it can help the local businesses. For this, we needed a database and a pilot area. Unfortunately, as the council does not have a tourist department or a visitor economy officer, we had no tourist database to start with. Next slide. So the first step was to define the pilot areas where we wanted to build a network. They needed to make sense from a visitor economy perspective and also from a geographical one. We started with 3 pilot areas: Gateway to the Broads, marked with the blue line, Great Yarmouth on the east side, marked with the red dotted line, and King's Lynn on the west, marked with yellow. These were places with already well-developed visitor economy, but focused on in-season visitors, so from April till September, and with mostly traditional tourism activities. They had, however, good potential for off-season, experiential, and sustainable tourism. Then we realized that a large part of Norfolk was not included in our approach, and especially as areas with good potential for visitor economy. So we've added 2 more pilot areas called Norfolk Coast, marked with the red line, and Trails, marked with the green dotted line and zigzagging the county. Okay. The next step was targeting traditional and non-traditional tourism actors. The project focus is on experiential activities and the fact that this can be the creation of any type of organization or individual from any sector. For our network to make sense and to be useful, we had to include both traditional and non-traditional tourism actors. Examples can include a yoga teacher, a wood carver, forager, weaver, or baker. Lack of off-season offer is one of the main deterrents for visitors between October and March, so in the off-season. The more networking and collaboration between businesses from different backgrounds, the more innovative products and itineraries are created, thus making Norfolk more competitive and attractive as a destination. So it was a priority for us, helping SMEs from non-visitor economy background to make the step into this industry. Okay. Finding sources for the project was not easy, but we tried to approach colleagues inside and outside the environment department. So for example, the economic development team has facilitated us access to the company's house database, which turned to be the most important source due to its wealth of information. The walking and cycling team had a database with accommodation providers for the North Norfolk trails. This was helpful, especially with small businesses that do not have money to be featured on big booking platforms. Online research has also provided a few other lists, like for example, a list of market stall sellers from around Norfolk. This was very interesting because they were mostly non-traditional tourism actors, but with good potential to develop experiences.
George, sorry to stop you halfway. our interpreters are just kind of catching up. You're speaking quite fast, so if you don't mind slowing it down.
No problem. Sorry, it's just a lot to cover.
You've got to cover an awful lot, but they might be hyperventilating. So
okay, no problem. I'll take it slower. Okay. Can I start now? Are they okay? Okay. So once we had the database ready and we had established the pilot area, we move to the next step, which is building the network. For this, we have used any communication opportunity to increase the project visibility and the sign-ups for the newsletter and project updates. With each training and networking event, we have tried to maximize the network growth and also the cooperation opportunities for the participants. During the event sign-up process, participants were offered the option to join the newsletter database. They also had the option to share their contacts with other participants at the event to increase their cooperation and business awareness opportunities. We have also created a Facebook group called Norfolk Experiences, where like-minded people interested in developing, managing, and promoting their experiences can get together. At just shy of 100 members, the group would grow even larger if there would be a continuation of the project. Not lastly, creating a Norfolk dedicated newsletter on top of the project one was another step in developing and maintaining the network. We have sent this network newsletter every 3 months, starting October 2021. Okay. Finally, the third step in developing our network was its management. Initially, we have used Excel, which at the basic level is still a good program, but has many limitations. We needed a modern solution that would help network development and improve communication. And the solution that we have chosen was Tractivity, which is a stakeholder or customer relationship management software. Here on the left side, you can see the welcome page in Tractivity, where straight away you can see the number of organizations, the number of contacts we have in the database, you can see the shared mailbox and so forth. On the right side, you can see some of the main reasons for which we have chosen this solution. So for example, integrating database management and communication. It automatically makes connections between contacts and organizations. So we know at any point in time, an organization how many contacts has in our database, or if there is no organization connected to a contact. It automatically checks the validity of email addresses. So again, we know if an email address needs to be updated or is not working anymore. We can create custom mail shots, and we have plenty of stats. Here on the left side, you can see a standard invitation mail shot to one of our training sessions. This can be saved as a template, so every time we create a new invitation, we can use the basic template. On the right side, you can see part of a Norfolk newsletter, and you notice how neatly the links to our YouTube channel, to our website, and to email us are integrated at the bottom of the mail shot. Also, all the way at the bottom of the page, on the right side, you can see the unsubscribe button, which is a major help for us. In Excel, something like this cannot exist. And talking about statistics, this is how the stats screen looks in Tractivity. And on the right-hand side, I have put a few, some of the most important stats. So we have sent 22 mail shots from this program to 58,000 recipients, out of which 18,400 have opened the email, which is a very good open rate of 31%. And we had 2,600 clicks on the links included in newsletter or mail shots or invitations. Okay, that brings us to the main achievements the network development had for the project. So 498 people have signed up to our newsletter so far, showing how interested local organizations and individuals are in developing tourism. Over the course of 1.5 years, 355 people have attended our 20 online training sessions. We had various topics ranging from marketing and storytelling to social media, attracting walkers and cyclists, or dealing with inclusivity. When we were finally allowed to have face-to-face networking events, we've been some of the first to do them. During the 5 sessions we have organized all over Norfolk, more than 100 participants have attended to find out more about the project and how their offer can become more experiential. We have also used this opportunity for business-to-business testing, where participants were giving constructive feedback for their experiences and how to develop and overcome issues. Here you can see a few pictures from the networking events. On the left, you can see Bobby Spooner demonstrating his carving skills. In the top picture, we have Lisa and Tom from the Shoebox Enterprise presenting their experience. And at the bottom, we can see a discussion regarding business-to-business testing. Okay, and here there is a video about our last event called the Norfolk Visitor Experience Show, which was a crossover between a networking event and a tourist fair.
We're here at the Norfolk Experience Show today. It's been fantastic already.
It's a networking event that is enabling us to all work together.
It's been really interesting to hear about all the other initiatives that have been going on, to speak to other businesses and see how we can work together.
We've met quite a few people who are in the tourism sector.
There's so many other businesses here that we're networking with and talking to.
Coming to events like this is always helpful, just because you can bounce ideas off of other people. You get to meet people that you'd never otherwise come across.
Sometimes we're not aware of what the other providers are doing, and we can develop synergies in relation to that.
The chance to meet people that you can collaborate with.
It's really important for us to get together with the Norfolk County Council and other tourist providers and find out what they're doing and communicate our needs to them.
We're here to help each other.
There's so much going on in Norfolk. We take it for granted in the area we live.
Norfolk itself is a wonderful place to visit. It's a quieter pace of life. We've got the beautiful countryside.
So far it's been wonderful, meeting some lovely friendly people, and everyone's been extremely welcoming.
It's been absolutely fantastic.
Okay, and that's it from me.
Thank you very much, George. Great work there. Obviously very familiar with it, and an awful lot of work has taken place with you and your team at Norfolk. Let's stay in the UK and join Philip from Cycling UK to hear how cycling has really obviously been really big, but how we've become more cycle friendly at our businesses. Philip.
Thank you, Chris. Cycling UK is really delighted to have the opportunity to demonstrate how cycle tourism plays a role in the Experience project. If you come on the next slide, please. Journeying on a bike is enhanced by and contributes to the changing trends of travel. And there's no better way, in my opinion, to get a thorough immersion in a place than exploring it on a bike. You cover more ground than when you're walking, but you still get to sample the flavours, the colours, the aromas and the sounds, and the feel of an area through which you're travelling. Next slide, please. When on a bike, one is able to reconnect with the natural world as one passes through, simultaneously enhancing well-being and experiences on offer. All of this wrapped up in a smug blanket knowledge that one is also engaged in a form of low-impact sustainable tourism. For this project, Cycling UK have focused on its work on two main areas. We've created routes and we've accredited tourism businesses. Both of these have been brought together in a new mapping tool that we've developed for cyclists. This is a fully interactive map. And by moving the cursor over a route or an accredited business, the user is able to access further information, contact details, and website links via the sidebar on the left. The routes have been designed to cover all types of terrain under various lengths. Many are based on towns and villages, enabling people to stay in one location days and to sample different routes from the one base, thus potentially extending their visit into the area. On the next slide, we can see a group of people. I don't know if it's moved on, it hasn't on my screen. If you can see it, a group of people around a table, but I don't think these are real cyclists. And the reason for that, there's one piece of cake between them. If they were real cyclists, they'd have at least one piece each. But I wanted to show this slide to demonstrate that the cyclists put money into the local economies when they're out on a ride. Next slide, please. In addition to the day rides based on the towns and villages, we've also created 3 long distance routes. Each of these is between 150 and 250 miles, 240 or 400 kilometres, and are designed to be spread over several days. These are proven to be extremely popular, and the most recent one, the Rebellion Way in Norfolk, was recently featured in the Daily Telegraph as one of the 20 best cycle holidays in the world. So we're dead chuffed about that. The West Kernow that we introduced, and it's a more rugged route than the other 2, exploring the landscape and heritage of West Cornwall. The next slide shows the Canty Way in East Kent, where cyclists can enjoy and experience the coast and countryside of that part of the county. I hope the slides are working. They're slow on my screen. And the one after that, please. All of these routes are too new to have given opportunities to collect any. We have the data that shows us that people spend an average of approximately £85 per day when taking one of these trips. Local businesses have also taken on the challenge of providing a service to the incoming cyclists. In Winchester, a new cafe has started entirely because the King Alfred Way starts and finishes in the town in which the cafe is based. A dairy farm and cheesemaker fitted fully into the spirit of the route. Next slide, please. So why are these businesses doing this? And why might other businesses want to attract cyclists? As well as being wonderful people in themselves, and I am biased, cyclists represent a great market for tourism businesses. In the UK, at least 10% of people regularly cycle for fun, and many of them have money to spend. So it makes sense to encourage them to spend it in your business. The single main topic of conversation and thought on a cycle ride is inevitably about food. Perhaps sometimes how steep the hill is, but mostly about food. When are we stopping for a meal or a snack? Where will we stop? What are we going to eat when we stop? That dominates the conversation and the thoughts of each cyclist. And although we're referring to typical cyclists, there are all sorts of people on all sorts of bikes, and a few of them listed here. Tourers, day trippers, people on mountain bikes going on the most ridiculously rough terrains, groups of riders in a club, the whole lot. So on the next slide, what will you offer to cyclists? What is a cyclist looking for when they come to a business? Whether we're thinking of accommodation or food and drink options. And there are perhaps 5 things that we want to focus on. And these, if we go on the next slide, please, are the requirements of our accreditation, cycle-friendly places, but also remarkably similar French equivalent, appris vélo, both of which focus on these 5 requirements we noted in the previous slide. The need for comfort, the need for security, Should just point out that the bike is the most important thing a cyclist has with them, even if they're cycling with a partner. The security of the bike will take paramount place. Security, comfort, refreshment, as I've mentioned, maintenance, and information. That's what we're looking for in a cycle-friendly place, and that's why we've established the accreditation scheme to enable people and businesses to sign up and to enable cyclists to know where they can go to find what they need. So I'll say farewell, thank you for listening, and I'll leave the final word to one of our accredited businesses, a gentleman called Trevor Ellswood from the Summer House in Penzance in Cornwall. Thank you.
So my name's Trevor Ellswood. I run the Summer House in Penzance, and we are a 5-bedroom boutique bed and breakfast stroke hotel. So a cycle-friendly place is one that is welcoming and adapts to the needs of cyclists, being able to store cycles safely for our guests, ensure that then if it's a rainy day and they just get a bit soaked, they've got areas to dry their clothing, and also the ability just to refuel, and if anything goes wrong with the bikes, be able to navigate their way around where to get some good advice or toolkit. The accreditation allowed me just to sort of, I suppose, anchor to some things that were real must-haves, not just a nice-to-have, it was a must-have. So it enabled us to look at investing in the right areas to build on already what we were doing. The accreditation allows you not to have any mismatch of expectations, and then as a result you should have a very happy customer. Another plus, I think, is the fact that it will extend the season. So for us, we've got a very tourist concentration in the high peaks of people coming to beaches and all those type of things that people know Cornwall for. But this now should even out our visitor base, because cycling will be March through to April, and then September through to November as well. So I'm hoping and could expect that it will now see a more flattening of our demand across a wider season. There is clearly, a growing market and a growing excitement around the cycling community in this part of the world. There are more bikes and more cyclists, and hopefully that will continue. It's really sustainable tourism in this part of the world that is absolutely vital. Yeah, so in summary, joining cycling-friendly places has been, quite frankly, is just a no-brainer. The accreditation was very simple. The economics were so, just made sense to us in terms of it lengthens our season. It taps into a growing demand that we've got out there. And then the cyclists that join us, they're just coming here to have fun and a great experience of cycling, which makes it a very, a lovely vibe for our property as well.
And there we go. Thank you very much, Philip. You can see Philip's email address, experience@cyclinguk.org, if you want to put any questions, or alternatively, you can pop questions into the Q&A button on the toolbar. Which brings us to the Q&A session. We don't currently have questions in there, but I just wondered, Elizabeth from Pays de Calais mentioned about trying to, reach out to businesses, and I just wondered if I could bring Rebecca back from the Kent Downs area of outstanding natural beauty, just to kind of elaborate on how you went about kind of engaging businesses, because from the AONB's point of view, it was a new thing. You didn't know those tourism businesses. You obviously worked with the local tourism agency. But just tell us about how you went about that.
So it was twofold. So through the North Downs way, we had a business list that for a previous project someone had researched. So we based some of our original emails out to that. Then we also identified, so we did an options appraisal as part of the project that identified some of the types of businesses that we would be working with, because you're right, we didn't have any track record to go on, but in some ways, I think COVID meant that lots more people were getting interested in the countryside, and so that was sort of quite appealing for the businesses. So there was sort of a direct contact as well. And then thirdly, we did some sort of intro webinars and we promoted those through paid Facebook channels and social media channels, and tried to get people interested that way. And then I suppose that the last point was that we worked closely with Visit Kent, who of course have their big database, and said to them, you know, if there are any of your businesses who are in the Kent Downs as well and are particularly connected to nature, then we're interested to talk to them. So yeah, sort of multi-pronged attack really, from blanket emails all the way through to, you know, basic cold calling and asking them if they're interested.
Yeah, and thank you, Rebecca. And Elizabeth in Pays de Calais, you were saying about how you literally picked up the phone to speak to these businesses as well. How many businesses have you trained in the programme so far?
Oui. À ce jour, nous avons formé plus d'une 50aine d'entreprises sur le département du Pas-de-Calais. Alors, sur plusieurs sujets, plusieurs formations sur le numérique, comment communiquer sa nouvelle offre à travers les réseaux sociaux, comment l'illustrer avec de la photo, de la vidéo, comment développer une offre expérientielle, avec qui travailler les offres expérientielles, donc toute la partie partenariat. Et le dernier sujet concernait le tourisme durable. Comment rendre mon offre plus durable?
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And I can't agree more about your point about having face-to-face training, because it is so much easier. You know, experiential tourism is all about that connection with guests, that relationship that you have between a business and a visitor. And that's quite hard to do, obviously, when we're doing training on Zoom as well. So I totally agree with you about that interface and having that face-to-face experience in your training. Thank you to all of our participants for that section. We're going to take a short break. We've got a 10-minute break now. And after that break, at 20 past the hour, we'll look at residence matters. So the role tourism is making in a destination and how it appeals to visitors, meaning to champion that local identity. So we hear often about live like a local and all these things like that, but that local identity is so important. So a 10-minute break now, and then we're back here at 20 past the hour.